We're all set on your end? Okay. Good evening. Welcome to the Board of Selectmen meeting for this date of June 1st. Is that correct, or 2nd? 1st. All right. 2021. Call this meeting to order at 6:30 p.m. The Plaistow Board of Selectmen, in accordance with the Governor Sununu's Emergency Order Number 12, pursuant to Executive Order 2020-04, is authorized to meet electronically. The Select Board is utilizing the Zoom platform for this meeting for those who do not wish to attend in person. This link is PlaistowAccess.com/remote-BOS. You may watch the meeting on cable TV channel 17 or live stream the meeting at vimeo.com/Plaistow or facebook.com/PlaistowAccess. You may call in for public comment at 603-382-5200, extension 290. If you would like to make a comment or ask a question by email, please email Beth at bhossack, and I'll spell it BHOSSACK @plaistow.com. Questions and comments received by 3 p.m. on the day of the evening will be read at the meeting. Beth, could you do a roll call, please?
Select Chair, Mr. Britton.
Yes.
Select Vice Chair, Mr. Blinn.
Here.
Selectman Mr. Talion.
Here.
Selectman Mr. DeRoche.
Here.
Selectman Mr. Coy.
Here.
And please note for the record, joining us remotely is Town Manager, Mr. Pearson. And also tonight, we have Dee Voss, Special Project Coordinator, and we have some track members. I believe we have Isabel Gattro and Bob Kincaid. Is that correct?
Very good. Jay, could you lead us in a pledge of allegiance, please?
Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, 6:30, we're opening discussion on the trash and recycling. And
You want to approve the
Minutes first?
minutes for us?
we can do that.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes of May 24th, 2021 of the Board of Selectmen.
I'll
Second. Bill? Oh, Jay,
Either one.
the second.
I'll give you
All
the
those in favor?
Whatever.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Now we'll go into recycling. Who's going to? Jay, are you starting this?
I guess so. So the town manager provided us with a list of 7 questions that he wanted us to answer. We thought it would be a good idea to have the track committee have representatives here, so they're here to join us for the discussion. So I guess we'll just start with the first question and go down the list. Does that work for everyone? Or, Mr. Pearson, do you want to give a little background first, or you have any comments?
Sure. So the goal is to answer all those unanswered questions for purposes of the RFP to be complete, to be advertised for proposals, and according to the schedule, so that there's a timely there's a timeline that we need to follow, so that any potential award of a contract is given to, say, a successful person or company, hopefully 90 days before the end of the year. And then the other questions tonight are the trash carts that need to be answered, because those obviously need to be ordered and need to arrive before the trash contract starts.
Okay.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, sir.
Could I just add one thing before we start going through the questions? The first couple of questions that we have to answer is colors. And I guess it has a basic assumption that we've already decided that we are going to go with 96 gallons for recycle and 64 for trash. I'm not sure if we have final discussion, but maybe we need to be able to just talk about that a little bit, and just for two items. One was the concern about elderly being able to handle the 96-gallon barrels, and the fact that the lids are not interchangeable, that makes it a little bit harder for us to be able to have, if we order 64-gallon barrels, we'll have to order a surplus of them with two different colors of covers. I did a little bit of research. The 96-gallon barrel is effectively the same height as the 64-gallon barrel. The wheels are the same. The relative weight is almost the same. It's a little bit heavier, but not very much on the 96. So if you can handle the 64, you definitely can handle the 96. There's larger wheels on it, makes it easier to be able to carry. If we do decide to go with 96 for both trash and recycle, there's two other benefits that I see. One benefit is we don't need to purchase additional 64-gallon barrels for people who need to have more trash. And the second issue is that by having both of them be 96, with the covers would then be interchangeable. So we could basically use, if someone wanted a second barrel, we just give them a different color, depending on what they're looking for. So that's
Different colors available?
yeah, there's different colors available, and so if you, for example, if you did green for recyclable and blue for trash, you could interchange those covers. So somebody could have two barrels with blue covers and one barrel with a green cover for recycle. So I just wanted to be able to bring that to the floor and let the members discuss that to see whether or not that we want to answer that question about that was made known by our elderly residents.
Right.
So is there any selectmen have a comment or suggestion on that?
I mean, personally, I would like to see them both the same size. And I know it may be a little bit more difficult for the elderly, but for all the reasons you just stated,
Yep.
it seems like that's the less convoluted way to do this.
Yeah, and I think if you go with the smaller ones, you're gonna have a lot more houses that are gonna want two barrels. Right, that's gonna happen, because I know that's the situation I would be in. I don't know about everyone else, but a lot of homes are like that, especially if you have young families. You know, and we've already agreed to what a contract for the 96 gallon, right?
Correct. One last thing I just want to add to that is I did find the measurements. Roughly, both barrels, the 64 and the 96, are both 41 inches tall. So literally, the size of the barrel when you're grabbing a hold of the handle is almost exactly the same. The only difference is the width.
The width of it.
Of the barrel for the additional capacity.
Do you folks have any input on that? Yeah, would you please come up?
So Isabel and I each called.
Could you just state your name for the
It's-
record, please?
I'm Bob. I'm the vice chair of the track committee. So Isabel and I each called two neighboring towns which have recently gone through this just to get some information from them. I called Stratham. They just went with Casella, effective January 1st of this year. How they answered this question was they said, by default, if you're a single-family home, you get a 95-gallon. If you're a condo, a townhouse, an apartment, you're a 65-gallon. So that was their approach to this. They didn't do a survey. Similar reasons to what you're thinking is people aren't really going to know. They don't really have good insight going into it. So it's just it's a guess for a lot of the residents. So that's why they didn't go with the survey, but they did split it depending on, with the theory being a single-family home would be larger potentially than a condo or a townhouse. They said they did have some one-offs that they dealt with individually, but not a ton, small percentage of those. They went with black base and black lid for trash, blue bid and lid for recycling. So that was what they did in Stratham. If you're interested in Atkinson, I think Isabel has those.
but I see what you're saying. It'd be nice to have, if the lids are interchangeable, you know, to me, it makes a lot of sense for a whole bunch of reasons, you know?
I thought Mr. Pearson said they weren't.
I think Mr. Pearson said they weren't interchangeable if you went with a 64 and a 96.
Yeah, because they'd be different sizes, right, which makes sense. A bigger one barrel wouldn't fit on a smaller barrel.
That was all I had, so.
Okay. Mark, one of the things that we talked about last week was, I'm looking at the price, the May 27th price on the 96, and we were at 192.9 roughly for the barrels. Was that the price before the escalation, or is that the most current price?
That's I believe you got the estimate in front of you for the 64s and the 96s?
Yes.
Yeah, so that's the most recent pricing. That previous proposal is no longer valid.
Okay.
The company will not honor it. They were waiting for a decision on a color of a barrel back in January. And then the price of plastic and resins went up, so they're not going to honor that proposal.
Okay, so that would just bring another question or just a quick thought. If the prior proposal we had, that means we're not locked into that anymore, right? If they're not going to honor that?
Right.
Would it make sense, we know the budget is so tight, right, with everything, to just look at possibly stay with like a JRM where we don't have to get into purchasing any barrels? And just keep, the trash pickup the way it is with the recycling and everything?
So would that be a,
Because we know how tight the budget is. That's what I'm thinking about right now.
would that be a manual pickup then, not an automated?
Right, because we wouldn't have the barrels. It's just a quick thought for us to maybe possibly think about.
I think I understand what you're saying. I guess what we'd have to do is to find out what the total budget is once, if we've blown the budget completely
Yeah.
with the request and the upcharge on the barrels and everything, I think we have to have a plan B.
Right, because I'm kind of looking at the barrels, right? Because you figure if we go with the 96, you're looking at purchasing 2 of them, right?
Yep.
It's almost $400,000.
Right.
Just in barrels. That we could save, we wouldn't have to worry about with the budget, where we're so tight against everything with the budget this year.
So one question would be, if we were to order all 96, that would be, instead of 3,100, it would be 62 or 6,300 barrels. Would that overall cost per barrel be a little bit less? The point that you're making is good, is that if we are going to go to an automated process, and that brings the contract price down, that's a long term, it's a 5-year savings.
Right.
And we could do the barrels on a 5-year. Jay, do you remember what the first one was? Was it a 5-year lease?
Yeah,
I'm pretty
they
sure.
were. JRM and Waste Management did a 5-year
5-year lease. So,
And then you had the option to buy it for $1 at the end of the 5 years.
so instead of dispersing all of that amount of money, almost $60,000, you could go with a 5-year lease, and then you'd basically pay for 1/5 of it as you're
Right,
going
no,
through.
I get how the lease works.
I
Yeah,
think
and that would be a big
the
reduction
problem
in
was,
cost.
though, what Mark was telling me last week, I think, what was the lease, Mark? I mean, there was a $30,000 price for the lease on top of the price of the barrels themselves? Or
No, the monthly cost was $3,062 a month, based on that previous quote. And I calculated the interest on that 5-year term, and it was 11.7% interest. So it was a total cost of $19,000 and some change of interest to finance the original proposed purchase back in January. So with the escalated costs, I think you might be looking at close to $7,500 to $8,000 a month on a similar term, depending on the interest. And maybe with a larger purchase, you have a little bit of bargaining power for, a better interest rate or a better cost. So you might be looking at budgeting approximately $7,500 to $8,000 a month for 5 years to cover the cost of the purchasing of the barrels.
So you're talking almost, well, you'd be talking well in excess of $90,000 a year
Yeah.
to lease.
Yeah.
In 5 years, you're kicking the door of $450,000, $500,000, and we don't own anything at that point.
And then we'd have to buy them all for another, whatever, $10,000.
Right.
Just
I
round
th- I
numbers.
think one of the,
Good thing is the barrels are, the reputation of the barrels are a warranted 20 years and normally 30 years is what the
Okay.
normal wear of them. So we basically would get back that investment at a later time as we go on with other contracts and other companies. Do we know the difference between automated versus manual? Is there a rough cost difference that we know per year? Mark?
No, because we know what the cost is right now for the manual, but we haven't put out the RFP to find out the cost for the automated.
oh, sorry, Jake.
Okay, so I just want to make sure I'm clear. So the contract that we signed with Rehig, that other company that we signed last year, they're no longer honoring that. So we're out of that contract now?
That's correct. That was a proposal and a quote, and it was not binding. It says it at the bottom of the page. But had we picked a color back then in January, and had we told them within that, 30-day time period, they would have honored it back in January.
The problem is now is we're at a premium time. I mean, petroleum-based products like plastic is going through the roof, and, who knows? I mean, 6 months from now, it may fall back down, and the prices of the barrels may come back down. So one of the fallback positions maybe is to take and look at extending what we have for right now, and then looking at purchasing the barrels maybe when the price of petroleum comes down a little bit.
And then you could properly budget for it as well.
Yeah.
Right? We'd have all the numbers.
Well, and if we look at extending, Mark was able to negotiate that 6-month extension. I don't know, do you think JRM is going to be amicable to another 6-month extension, Mark? Or
A year?
whatever?
Well, I can't speak for JRM. All I could do is ask.
Yeah. Well, I guess as part of the RFP, that could be in there. We could ask for numbers for an automated and a manual, and the automated having, a cart lease in it, or, we got to see the numbers.
That's it. I mean, we're sort
know.
of blind until we
Yeah.
have the numbers. I mean, we know what the carts are going to be, but we don't know the rest of it at this point. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I'm Isabel Gautreau. I'm the chair of the track committee. And I have the Atkinson contract, and it has pricing in there for collection services for the year. When they were on the manual collection, it was $344,000 per year. And when they switched to automated, it came down to $291,000 per year, if that's of any indicament.
So it's about 50.
Oh, very good, thank you.
How long ago was that, though? I think that was a few years ago.
It was
right?
2018
Yeah.
when they switched, 3 years.
So Isabel, you said 344 and 290,
291.
291.
Just a little under 50,000, that's all the difference.
So $50,000 is considerable for a 5-year contract. That's $250,000.
And it gives us a range, I guess, but a lot's happened since 2018, too. So I guess you could use that delta to think about this, but
And Is the recommendation from the track committee to go automated, or did you guys go to that level?
That was,
Okay.
And it was influenced by the fact that we thought the carts were already purchased, so we kind of felt like,
Okay, I'm sorry.
Could you
The
come up here,
audience
please?
Outside cannot hear what you're saying, sorry. We could bring a microphone over there.
track recommended cart purchase, but an additional cart purchase on top of the PO that had already been issued, primarily because we were already halfway into it. So we felt that that decision was already made. There wasn't really any room to even discuss it. But if that PO is now essentially nullified, I think you could ask the track to go back to the drawing board. But again, I don't know that there's much the track could do without those RFPs in. So,
Yeah, please understand, there was never a PO for those, okay? It was strictly a request for a pricing, okay?
Okay.
Okay, very good, thank you.
Thanks.
Please.
Isabel Gautreaux again. The other option that was on the table that we didn't go with because we thought we were locked into automated collection was the pay-as-you-throw option, where you don't have to buy any barrel. People buy their bags at a convenience store or at the hardware store, and you buy as many bags as you want. They get manually collected. And we found that very attractive because it really gets people thinking about other things to do with their waste, because every bag is going to cost them money, and you don't have to buy any barrels up front. We didn't go with that option because we thought we were locked into bins and automated trash collection.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, I was going to add to Isabel's comments. The article I read about Concord, they reduced their trash tonnage by 43% when they went to that, what's it called? Not pay-as-you-go.
Pay-as-you-throw.
Pay-as-you-throw.
Yeah.
Pay-as-you-throw. And the bags were something like $1 or $2 a piece or something to that effect.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'm only speaking personally now. I'm not a real big fan. I don't mind the pay-as-you-go. I'm not a fan of the trash bags. You get in the middle of a winter storm and they get buried or they get ripped, and it's just, I'm just not a big fan. And I think that the people in the town up to this point have been paying for trash collection through their taxes and having it picked up in a neat fashion. But to take and have them go to the hardware store and buy trash bags and take it out, I mean, that's what we did in town here 50 years ago.
Yeah, we also thought that that was a big change, but you don't have to put the bags on the street, right? You can still put them in a bin. When they come to collect them, they just make sure that they're in the right bags, and then they will only collect what's in the bags. But they don't have to be put out on the street with just the bags on them.
Okay, good point. Thank you.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I did some additional research on Franklin, New Hampshire. Franklin, New Hampshire had a similar problem in that they were paying both trash and recycle at two different rates. And they found out that their company that they were picking up their trash were bringing both of them to the incinerator. And so they basically went to that model of pay-as-you-throw.
Yep.
To reduce and give incentive to people to put less in your trash and more in your recycle. So that's another issue that we have. We don't clearly understand or know whether or not the recyclables that we're putting in are actually all getting recycled or not. Mm-hmm. And that's a concern. I think we heard that from some of our residents. Like, well, do I not have to recycle? And we don't want that. We want a message to say, yeah, we want all of us to recycle, and we want to be able to have a larger tonnage of recycled than we have regular trash. So that is an important program that has been implemented by a number of New Hampshire towns, that some of them have reduced their trash by half. Go ahead, Jake.
oh, no, continue going.
Oh, okay. So some of them have reduced their trash almost in half in terms of overall tonnage, by implementing this program. So, and again, how the logistics of it, and I assume, as Isabel said, we would use our original trash barrels that we currently already have, put them inside of there instead of using,
An open barrel.
right,
Right.
I'm sorry.
Okay?
And Isabel, the pay-as-you-throw, who would pick it up? Is it a specific company? Is it one of these companies that we would be entertaining, like a JRM or a Casella?
Waste Management has two of the contracts in Raymond and Exeter.
Okay.
That's the only company that we've come across.
I thought that Franklin also had waste management as well. And I'm not sure about Concord.
So the pay-as-you-throw then, you buy the bags then, right?
Yep.
And it would go, who would collect the money for that? And how do most towns work that out? Is it the hardware store, they buy the bags at town hall?
There's both ways. Bill, you can either purchase it through the town hall or town facility, or you could provide it through a local department store, being able to purchase these specific bags.
And then that money
They're
would
they're
come in.
really rugged, high mill plastic bags. They're not like the trash bags we have inside of our kitchen.
And then the money comes back to the town to offset everything, right?
I don't know how, if we are selling the bags, yes, then that would take care of some of the additional cost. The big savings is the reduction in actual tonnage that we are paying for to send to the trash
Yep.
versus recycle.
Okay.
Yeah.
One of my questions would be on the pay-as-you-go type of situation. We're trying to be as green as we can these days. How biodegradable are these bags that, we're not looking at them again 1,000 years from now? I mean, if we're trying to be green and we take and put 20,000 bags in the dump or in a landfill somewhere, have we just created another problem to live with? So, I mean, and I'm asking the question because I really don't know.
Yeah, so I think we'd have to look at if you could reduce your actual trash tonnage by 43%. That's just
Yeah.
one town,
Yeah.
but just as an example, if we could get anywhere close to 43%, that's half of the trash that's going to be burnt. So that we're reducing that amount and we're incentivizing the citizens to put things into recyclable capacity versus trash.
Right.
So, yeah, there's a few more plastic bags, but it's 43% less than what we're putting in there.
Okay,
And right now, we're using plastic bags that are granted a very thin mill.
Right.
For the kitchen bags and whatnot, and these will be a little bit stronger so they don't break. But I think that's a much, much smaller amount of trash and that we're actually putting into the landfill or burning than if we were to be focusing on allow people to empty as much trash as they want to and totally ignore recycle.
okay.
Yeah.
Anyone else? Comments? B? Well, we have the price of the barrels now. Now and we know what we do for, I think we talked about the colors here tonight. So we have that. What other questions were sitting out there, Jay?
What color lids? Has the board decided we need to order 3,100? 50, 65 gallons? I don't think we need to answer that question. Because I think the consensus is if we go with the 96, we're going to go
All the way.
all the
yeah.
way. How does the board intend to fund the purchase of the lease of the carts? So I guess I would ask the town manager, what, are there any options? Is there any wiggle room? I know there's money in the trash budget for a lease as it is, and the contract is obviously gone up, or the proposal has gone up based on the numbers you presented tonight. So is there room within the budget to handle a cart lease?
So the answer is, based on the projections and not knowing the exact interest rate for the financing, but if it were to come in that $7,500 to $8,000 a month lease of the barrels with the buyout at the end for $1. So you're going to talk about a lease, but it will be a purchase at the end. That it depends on when the barrels are delivered and when the first payments start. For instance, if you were to make a decision to purchase 6,300 96-gallon barrels, you decided the color and the lids and all that, and the proposal that's before you, they would honor for a short time here. If we were to commit to that and then not start making the payments until they were delivered, and if they were delivered in, let's just pick a date that they were delivered in either October or November, then you might only be talking about 2 or 3 payments, which would be the equivalent of about somewhere between $21,000 and $24,000 for this fiscal year. And then you would know for next year to budget for the monthly finance charge in next year's budget. So it's not 90,000 this year. It may be 90,000 next year, but this year here, it just depends on when they're delivered.
And we still, at this
Sounds
point,
good.
we still don't know what the contract's going to be.
Right.
You know, that's the great unknown. Yes, sir.
If I could ask, do we know the lead time to get the carts from the time we issue a PO? Because I think, Mr. Pearson, last time you laid out a schedule, it was looking like potentially making an award in September. If we were to make an award and choose the supplier in September, would that give us enough time to purchase carts at that point? If we were to wait, have the final vendor decision, and then either decide to buy or lease or go with existing model after September, is there enough time to do that?
So my understanding is, and Dee is there, and she's welcome to step up to the microphone and confirm or correct, is that based on the conversation with Cascade, that they thought that if we placed an order relatively soon, that it would fit the shipping and the freight schedule for the fall, and that we could count on receiving it in the fall. But I would defer to Dee because she did have, she was dealing with them directly and relayed that information to me.
Okay. Dee, you're going to talk to that?
Yeah. My conversations with the representative from Cascade were the pricing information that you currently have is only good for 30 days. So if we don't order within the next 30 days, the pricing isn't locked in.
Right.
And if we don't order within the next 30 days, he can't guarantee the delivery in the time frame that we're looking for. He may be able to, but he can't guarantee it at this point if it's not within the next 30 days.
Okay. What's the feeling of the board?
I think let's go for it. Let's get them ordered, and if we can have them delivered in, late October, November, that would be plenty of time to get them assembled and get them distributed. And because we're going with a separate company for the carts, and we're not really dependent upon who we get for the RFP for the trash,
I agree with that.
my perspective.
Rest of the board, your feelings?
I agree with that. I just, the way things have gone over the last year and with the manufacturing the way it is and the demand, and we're in a tough situation, and not knowing that other contract lapsed, unfortunately, now we're starting over. So I think, at this point, we're going to have to probably go with the 96. And, as far as going with the 96 and the 65 or 64, whichever it is, I think will be a logistical issue with, you know, if someone says, well, I want to use the 65 for recycling and I want to use the other one for trash, you know, it's just consistent, everyone's getting 96 for both, you know,
Right.
it makes sense, so. And, you know, to Greg's point, if these carts, you know, weigh the same, but they just have a different base, you know, then, you know, it shouldn't be that big of an issue for our more senior residents, so. So I would agree.
Okay. Bill?
The only thing that'd be nice to know, and obviously we're up against time, is what that break-even point is between the manual pickup and going with automated. Is it, that break-even point, is it 2 years, 3 years, less than that? Obviously, that's, I don't know if we have the time to figure that out.
Mr. Chair, can I just speak to Bill's
Sure.
comment? Because he brings up a good point. And I think you have to look at it a little bit longer. So if we are going to be purchasing these carts, then we're kind of locking ourselves into automated for the next 20 or 30 years. So if the difference was $53,000 per year, spread it out over 20 years, that's quite a bit of, the break-even point is really good.
Right, that's why I'm just wondering, I don't know if
Yeah.
that was looked at before.
Yeah, we had the opportunity, we probably could do a internal rate of return and show where the break-even point was. But I think it's going to be very positive.
Yeah,
I
relatively
honestly
quick, too.
believe that it's not going to be too many more years
No.
where it's all going to be automated. It's going to be automated or it's not going to be
It will be at some
anything.
time. The only thing, if we went manual, if we ever had to do that, we'd only be looking at maybe a contract for 1 more year or something. That's all we'd be looking at. So
Yeah.
it's when are we gonna pull the trigger? Do you do it now? You know, bite the bullet?
Yeah. Pay me now or pay
Or
me
do,
later.
or do we do another year? Because obviously, it's the price of the carts. It's too bad with everything that's going on right now, but it's like everything.
But if we lease them,
Right, it's spread out more, absolutely.
you know,
And I know, I don't know if you, with your lease, if you can do it here, but I know like where I work with the lease, sometimes they want the business. So you can actually have them defer that first payment at no extra charge to you for, say, 3 additional months, which means we wouldn't start paying until we could budget for it.
well, I think the way it's set up right now is if they were ordered right away, it wouldn't affect us until the new budget.
Well, if we take delivery of it in October
shouldn't say
or
that.
November, now you're gonna pay, you're gonna have to
gonna
pay
pay
a few months here.
$24,000, yeah.
What I'm saying is, where I work, the business, I do this all the time, is you look at it and say, the company that, okay, we're not gonna have our budget released for 3 more months, but I need that order in for my manager, right? So, okay, you'll take delivery in October, you won't see a payment until December. Fits into the budget, perfect. I don't know if we can work that into a lease with this, which would be great, then we could budget correctly for next year.
That's a really good advice, a really good point, Bill.
I think that certainly it wouldn't hurt to try, you know.
But a lot of businesses, they want the business.
Yeah.
And if you're talking only deferring it for 60 and 90 days, that's a win for everybody.
Yeah, good point, good point. Okay, so,
Basically, I would just say, you know, if we're gonna do them, just, you know, the barrels are all the same colors, and then we just have the, you know, split it evenly with the trash and recycling, and,
well, the barrels would have a different lid.
right, the
I mean, a
lid, that's
different
what I was
color
getting
lid.
at, yeah,
Yeah.
was each lid,
The body would be the same.
yeah,
Right.
body would be the same, and then the lids would just be different. so.
Right,
Good point.
Yeah, I mean, you could just do like, one of them could be, say, just do them in, containers could be blue, right?
Yeah,
Right.
And you could just keep one as blue all the way and the other one have a green lid, green for recycling, right?
right.
exactly.
Yep.
So, Mark, do you have what you need now to move forward?
I just heard Selectman Foy say blue for trash and green for recycling.
Right,
That's the barrel and the lids, so you're gonna have a
just-
blue barrel and a blue lid, and a
bodies
green
would be
barrel
all-
and a green lid.
No.
Yep.
The barrels would be all the same color, just the lids would be different.
And what color are the bodies of the barrels gonna be?
It doesn't matter.
I mean, you could go, say blue just for a color, right? Does it make a
It
difference?
doesn't matter, yeah.
Whatever, you know, whatever you can get a deal on for a color.
But I would have a green lid though for recycle because it
Yeah.
just triggers.
Yep. So all the barrels will be the same base color, and the lids would be blue and green. half blue, half green.
Yes, sir.
Some of the other towns are doing black by default for trash, so I don't know if that would confuse anything if we didn't do black for trash, but just an observation, that was what we found,
Yeah.
a lot of them
I
are doing
mean,
black.
to me,
for trash.
I'd be asking them, what do you have?
Right.
And what can you give us a deal on? You know?
Either blue or green makes sense
Yeah.
for recycling, but if you go with black, it's consistent across the
I mean, if they're going to extrude them for our order, then you can have pretty much anything you want. But as long as we have a green lid and a blue lid, we're good. What else would you need, Mark?
Let me open up to the page with the questions here.
Jay, while he's looking at that, did you have something?
Just, I don't know, Mark or Dee, in your conversations with Cascade, is there any price difference as far as the color? Right, doesn't matter, okay. Thank you.
So we'd be looking at ordering,
7,000 pink ones in there, you know.
I'm like, as serious as I can be. If you want pink, it costs you more.
We'll do without pink.
Half the price and they're all pink, then. I'm just kidding, I'm kidding.
So in the JRM contract, question number 7, what does the board want to include from the current JRM contract into the RFP? And then in the proposed RFP that I drew up, there was a question in the proposal, the RFP, about recycling. And I put that in red for the board's discussion, so the board could decide that. And then there's other, in the proposed contract, there's some dates and locations and that have to be decided also. So it's on page 9.2 in the proposed RFP under C. And it's that question about recycled materials within the RFP. So that needs to be answered by the board.
I think it's 8.5, Mark. Page 10, 8.5, I believe.
Yeah, it's on the bottom of the page says 9.2, but it's actually 8.5 when you look at the top of the page.
Whereabouts in the catalog is it?
It's section 1,
First tab, tab 1.
first tab, and scroll to 8.5.
yeah, it's page 10.
It's
Page
page
10.
10.
Okay.
And 8.5, C.
Well, I guess the question is, and maybe I'm interpreting it wrong, but are you asking if we're gonna get in the business of reselling recyclable material? Or are we just letting them take the material and do whatever they want with it?
So that's the question for the board. There may be some expectations that there's going to be some kind of a rebate to the town, say if a commodity becomes, a hot commodity where there's a lot of recycling of plastic or glass or metals that the board expected to get a percentage of that. So that's why I wanted the board to decide that, the answer to that question. As it is right now, the contractor shall retain all proceeds generated from any recycling that they extract out of the process.
Well, if that's the contract, then what they're saying is their number will be one thing on the return bid. If they don't get to keep the recycling, it'll be another if they do. So to me, it's, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it's almost tomato. You know, they're going to boost the price if they can't, and they reduce possibly a little bit if they can. So My feeling is that
Leave it alone.
leave it alone.
Yeah.
Let them keep it.
And right now, there's not a whole lot of money to be gained in the,
No.
Maybe in 5 years,
right,
Yeah.
that could be different, right?
renegotiate.
So I think,
So I would just ask Dee, do you feel that the board has answered all the questions so we can move forward with the RFP?
I think we'll be able to fill in the date for the pre-proposal meeting. That was, the question on 8.5 was important. And
Dee, can you come up to the microphone?
don't mumble.
never been accused of that.
So I think that she was talking about page 5.
Yeah, I think those dates that we can fill those in, because it'll be more of a staff needs to be in attendance than the board. We still don't know the answer to number 7, what the board wants us to include from the JRM contract into the current RFP.
We're probably gonna have to think about bulk pickups, right?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
Bulk pickups, because, now they kind of do
That's
it.
in the RFP.
It is.
Yep.
But how often do we want to do it?
We're
It
asking them
wouldn't be
to,
weekly anymore, right?
we're asking them to make suggestions on
Okay.
it.
Yeah.
Mark, is there anything in the JRM contract that you're seeing that we may or may not include in this RFP?
No, well, don't forget, the contract's a little bit different because it's automated versus, your current system. So parts was one consideration. The discussion about recycling needed to be addressed because JRM had come to us and explained that their rate for the recycling was costing them more to get rid of recycling. But I think that the current proposal is asking for, the prices. So I don't think there's a lot of ambiguity between what JRM currently has and what we're asking, but I just posed a question to the board, that you like something in the JRM and you wanted to keep it, or there's something you don't like and you didn't want to keep it. The bulk pickup is addressed in the new RFP. And that's more or less that you're going to have to pay for bulky pickup, and they're going to have to give prices in the proposal for the bulky pickup.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, sir.
So in the JRM contract on page 2, where at the bottom of the page where it says designated recyclables, and under the commingled stream, on the last couple of words, it says labels and caps may be included, and everything I have read said caps are not recyclable and will be introducing contamination into the stream. So this may have been so 5 years ago. I'm not sure if it still is. And I'd hate to see that we're going to be paying an extra cost for recycle and then having this, giving the vendor the opportunity to take all this recyclable and send it to trash because it's contaminated.
Greg, do you think that's something we could work out with whatever the vendor is when we have this pre-proposal meeting? 'Cause-
Absolutely. I was kind of just doing it like backwards versus something that I wanted. I want something to be very clear to say, this is what's allowed by recyclable stream, and this is what's contamination.
Exactly, yep. No, that's perfectly, it's great.
If I could just double check and make sure that I'm understanding that the intent of the board is to order double of the 6,300
Right.
of all the larger size
That's correct.
parts. The body's all the same colors, the lid's different colors, blue and green.
Yep.
And I think that's it. on the questions. And we're going to leave that page 10, section 8.5 as is.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay,
Mr. Chair, can we ask the track committee if they have any additional comments before we
absolutely.
process? Isabel, do you have any other comments that you would like to add? Okay.
Just to revisit, I'm concerned if the body isn't black, some people might be confused because some other towns use blue for recycling, some use green. So if the base is anything other than black, I think some people might be confused. So I would just recommend you go with black body across the board, either blue or green for the lids to differentiate recycling lids from the black lids of the trash. I think that would omit any possibility of confusion. The other thing is just to consider that there needs to be time in the presentation that was made last year regarding carts. They talked a lot about needing a space to be able to stage them, and then from that staging location, distribute them, and they wanted it to be a big space, potentially secure, potentially paved. So I'm sure all that'll come, but I just wanted to remind you all that that was something that I think is going to be coming in the October, November timeframe once, as part of the bin distribution. That's it.
I think that black, is okay, but I mean, if there's any kind of upcharge, it's not okay, okay? If most of the ones I've ever seen, for the most part, are just a battleship gray with different covers on them. I think we have to take into consideration delivery times, what's available, what isn't available. We have a deadline to meet, and we certainly don't want to wait for them to be extruded and put ourselves in jeopardy of not having them in time, so.
Good point. Thank you.
And I believe in the past, we discussed the former highway garage would be the loading area and staging area for those. So if that's changed, maybe the town manager can advise, but I think that's what we were going with.
It's not paved, but I don't know if that's going to be an issue for them.
Some of it's paved, but yeah.
So that was all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bob.
Any other comments from the board or out in the audience? Okay. Well, with that, I will close this part of the meeting at 7:24.
We need a non-public.
Is this what this one was that you had in here? Okay.
If you want to go through the town manager's report and everything. You want to do the town manager's report and all that stuff?
What's that?
Before we go into a non-public, the town manager's report or any of that, should that get done first?
Yeah, he'd be in this one.
No, do you want to do,
Town manager's report and stuff like that usually gets done before we go into
I
non-public.
think that's a next week thing.
Okay.
That's fine by me.
Okay? There was one thing before we do that. Beth, do I need to talk about the Boy Scout thing? Can I?
It's a good idea, yes.
Okay. We have something here from the Boy Scouts. Tyler, John Allen Palquin is becoming an Eagle Scout Saturday, June 5th, 2021 at 11:30 a.m. at the Rock Church, 90 Newton Road, Plaistow, New Hampshire. We usually like to have somebody go. Anybody would like to represent us there? If not, then if there is no volunteers, I'll volunteer to go. But if there's volunteers, then more the merrier.
I'd have to check my schedule. It all depends if my mother has me busy Saturday or not.
Okay?
But I can give you a call on that,
Okay.
figure that out.
So Beth, I'll definitely go, and if anybody else can make it, it'd be great. Okay. Looking for a motion to enter non-public session under RSA 91-A, colon, 3, 11,
Just two.
I'm sorry, 2,
Yeah.
C, reputation. In consideration for legal advice. Do I get a second or a motion by someone?
I second the motion.
Okay, Beth, you have that?
Right, so you made the motion under C, right?
Yep,
Second by John, okay.
second by John.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman?
Yes,
Is reputation have anything to do with the discussion on the town manager?
no, sir.
Okay. And the other one, legal, doesn't have anything to do with the town manager?
No, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Are you calling in on a different number for this, Mark?
That's usually what Dean does for me. I don't know that he's provided me with that link, but if he provides me that link, I can do that.
Yeah.
If you try to call Frank at 245 again,
245?
yeah, and just ask for Dean to come upstairs. Send.
Hi. We need a separate number for Mark to call in on an executive session.
Okay, I'll send you a note.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, in the meantime, I'll take the vote. Is that okay?
Yes, please.
Okay, Mr. Britton?
Yes.
Mr. Blinn?
Yep.
Mr. Talion?
Yes.
Mr. DeRoche?
Yes.
Mr. Coy?
Yes.